This is Kenya from Spiritual Vitamin C, the podcast. Truth alert. Living for God is the biggest win. Knowing how? Now that's the question. Story by story, we present and break down God's holy word and give practical tips on how to apply kingdom principles today. So stay tuned. Hello. I hope you're doing well. Today, this is Kenya from Spiritual Vitamin C, the podcast. God is to be praised. Whatever day it is for you, I pray that you are living victoriously, that God is giving you strength for today. And I am so uber excited because this is the month of May. This month is National Mental Health Awareness Month. It was established in 1949 with the intent of raising awareness, spotlighting mental health in all of its facets. So this month, the podcast is going to run a series entitled Mind Your Mental Health. And the intent is to help raise visibility, bring information, debunk long-held beliefs that has held a lot of us back with regard to accessing mental health professionals or coming forth and saying that we're dealing with issues. Guests will be coming on the show throughout this month. They're going to come forth and give us information, give us education, and help us to understand mental health, mental illness, various things that are attached to it, whether it's mental health connected with drug abuse, whether it's dealing with tearing down long-held erroneous beliefs about mental health, mental illness, whether it is homelessness as a result of mental illness. We're also going to be dealing with how mental health is viewed in context of the church, in the African American church, with regard to men, specifically men of color, the myriad of areas regarding mental health we're going to be exploring and dealing with and highlighting, spotlighting in this month. Today, I have someone who I thoroughly enjoy. He is a pastor, and I'm going to read his bio in just a second, but he is a LCSW, and for him, he has this unique space that he stands in with being a pastor as well as a mental health professional. And so I want to say that just get ready. It's going to be an amazing episode. I wanted to put this disclaimer out here that this is for informational purposes only. Please seek your mental health or professional providers for information, for help. And so with that, let's get into it. Okay. Pastor James Edwards has 15 years experience in doing individual therapy and community case management. He is both personable and he is client-centered. He has worked in several positions in both Alameda and Contra Costa County to provide quality care to those suffering with severe and persistent mental health issues. He has worked in various roles such as clinical social worker, program manager, and clinical consultant. He has dealt with grief in his life at an early age, and he has had to deal with a learning disability. And as a result of that, he has developed empathy for others and what they've gone through in life. He's went on to receive his Bachelor's of Arts in Psychology at the University of California, Berkeley. Went on to receive his Master's of Social Work from California State University at East Bay. His perseverance to remain resilient in spite of his personal obstacles sparked a desire to help others to navigate through the challenges of their life. He has supported clients who have struggled with various issues such as depression, mood swings, anxiety, psychosis, and trauma. He empowers others to tell their story and to gather tools to move forward in their life with confidence. He actively works to reduce the negative stigma, like highlight negative stigma that hinders males and minorities from reaching out for clinical support so that culturally sensitive issues can be addressed. It is the passion of James to support people in evolving into their best self. And now we're going to bring on the screen James Edwards, Pastor James Edwards, licensed clinical social worker. How you doing, Pastor Edwards?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Miss Kenya?
I'm doing good. You know, I'm just going to say it now. I'm going to be calling you Pastor Edwards throughout the whole entire time that we're going to
That's
be
fine.
talking on this podcast. So I may go back and forth between James, LCSW, but just know I'm going to call you Pastor all throughout the podcast.
That's fine. I do them both.
All right. So I know that I've read your bio. Is there anything else that you would like to add? I like the bio is amazing. You know, just going through the things that you went through it early in your life and not allowing that to make you angry at God or just angry at life. But in fact, you allowed it to be this amazing stepping stone to where now you're helping people. Is there anything that you would like to say or anything else you would like to add that would really be a blessing to our listeners here?
You know, I'll just start off by saying that I think that one of the healing parts about dealing with tragedy, trauma, inconveniences is the important thing is that we not try to figure it out or try to get to the bottom of it or understand it as a spiritual person, as a Christian person, even is that I can get better without having a full understanding of what went on. I can heal without knowing the whys and the whats and the whos, and I can heal even if other people don't heal. And so part of my spirituality is to trust that God's plan for me does not need my permission or my full understanding in order for it to work. And so I must trust the process and know that even if what I'm going through is bad, somehow it's still going to work for my good.
Wow, that's kind of amazing. You don't have to know everything that you've gone through. You don't have to understand everything that's happened. I don't want to mess up what you just said, but
you don't have to understand all the details and the nuances and whys and whats and why am I struggling with this and why did this happen to me? And sometimes those kinds of questions make the actual event worse. That you can have a bad thing happen and then ruminate upon it and dig yourself deeper into it. And the solution to getting out of a stressful situation or a depressing situation or overcoming those feelings that you feel isn't necessarily to understand all of why did he do this, why did she do that. That isn't even necessary. Why did, even if you're a religious person like myself, why did God let me go through this? That's not even necessary to understand. My brain is only capable of handling so many things, and that's one of those things that Scripture says in the Book of Psalms is that that those are matters is too wonderful for me. That is too much for my bandwidth to handle, and so I have to let God handle the things that are of God, and I handle the things that's of man. And those complicated issues, I don't have to figure them out, but I can accept that whatever it is God's doing is going to work out for me. And I don't know the detail. I don't know the fine print. I don't know what he's doing behind the scenes. But whatever it is, I trust him. And as I surrender my trust to him, I can cooperate with the process.
Wow. So that's like what you're saying is like huge. It's revolutionary. Being that you are a Christian and you have that understanding, does that have any bearing on how you practice?
Definitely. And because I believe that when I, as a therapist, one of my maybe unspoken expectations or unspoken job descriptions be a carrier of hope. That it is my role to expect that things can be better. And even if the person who I'm working with doesn't have that same level of hope, it's my job to carry that hope until it becomes contagious, or to believe that for them until they can believe it for themselves. And so if there's no option of things getting better, then okay, then it makes sense to fall apart and to be as miserable as you may want to be. But if there's a sliver of hope, if there is a chance that things could be better on tomorrow, then I need to hold on to that for the person until they see it. And sometimes that spark doesn't even start with me, but I'll keep holding it. Maybe they won't see the light at the end of the tunnel when they meet with me. Maybe they'll see it with the next person, or maybe Big Mama will talk to them, or maybe the pastor, or maybe the person at the hair salon, barbershop, whoever. Somebody might get that fire started, or the light bulb might just come on its own. But I'm just to be one of the ones that hold hope for them until they can see it themselves.
Amen. My goodness. Thank you. Thank you. You know, in preparing for this podcast episode in particular with you, I went on the World Health Organization website just to get some information about mental health. And I also went on a website, NAMI, National Alliance on Mental Illness. And I went there just because for me, being a licensed psychiatric technician, I can only go so far, right? I'm not a therapist, but so I know so much, but I wanted to just get that broader insight and understanding about mental health. So I went to their website, and just some of the stats that they have regarding African Americans in general, and how our struggle with mental health is real, and just some of the hindrances to us seeking professional help, whether it's socioeconomic or this huge one, which is all the erroneous beliefs about mental health and mental illness. I don't want to jump the gun and have you just speak on that right now, but how do you view mental health with the lens of the African American church?
That's a loaded question.
I know it is.
Well, I'll start off, because I'm holder of that hope. I'll start off by saying it's getting better. It is improving, and I think some of it is because of progression, and some of it is almost a forced improvement, because there was, when it was just, the church had that member who, we all knew struggled with mental illness, or those members, or when they had a breakdown before they got saved, and that was because they lived in sin. They should have listened, and now they're a Christian. We're just all dealing with the consequences. When it was just those random members, then we could be a little more punitive. But I think if nothing else, the pandemic has put pressure on all of our mental health well-being, and so it's not that person way over there, or that cousin that we don't talk about, or that sibling that people don't know you have. It is, all of us have been impacted in one way or another, especially during the time when we were in quarantine, where all of our coping skills were taken away. Whether your thing was going for a walk, or going to the movies, going to the restaurant, socializing, hanging out with friends, sports, whatever way you relieved your stress in a healthy way, those healthy ways were taken away from us. And many people, those maladaptive coping skills, violence and drugs and abuse and other things have increased. And even if it did increase, if you were abused, you had nowhere to run, because there's no shelter for women anymore. And there's no, so it was besides the virus, there was a whole lot of secret breakdowns, and people couldn't even go to the psychiatric facility hardly, because there was health concerns there too. So the church has had to change within the last few years how we view anxiety, depression, because in one way or another, we're all affected by it. Whether it is the burden of failure or the burden of success, we all have a burden in one way or another. And you have to learn how to manage your burdens, so to speak. And so the Black church has become, I guess I won't touch on it too heavy. It sounds like you want to talk about it more later, but we have become more open in becoming and normalizing the struggle, at least. And so everyone who's depressed doesn't have a demon. Everyone who's anxious doesn't have, you don't have to stop the service and pray for somebody because they're a little stressed. There are certain things you deal with that are normal, and there are certain things that's even appropriate. There are some things that I would be more concerned if you weren't where the one person smiling at the funeral is the one person I'm worried about. You know what I'm saying? Even in the Bible, there was a time that when someone died, they were commanded to stop what you're doing and grieve. Stop 30 to 40 days and grieve. Have this moment. You are commanded, just like he said, be holy. He said, stop and grieve, so that when that time is over, you can now move on with your life. Have that moment to honor them, hold them, do whatever, fall out, do whatever you need to do. Now live. And sometimes we try to deny people their humanity and try to in order to impose upon them some level of pseudo spirituality.
Wow.
And so we are a dichotomy. We are spiritual, but we're also natural. And when you try to deny a person their human experience, you force them to you force them into a level of dysfunction.
Wow. That is huge. It's something when you can read something in the Bible and it doesn't really click until either you read it again and God reveals it, or someone says it and then it just opens. I didn't really think about it until you said it, that there was a mourning period for those who died.
Mm-hmm.
There was an expectation to
Yes.
mourn, even all the way to the point where, especially like in the New Testament, you see like mourners and Jesus putting out everybody in the room because he's about to perform this miracle. But I didn't really think about that there is an appropriate mourning period. And when you tell people to hurry up and get over it.
Yeah.
And so we want to be we want to be a Christian. We want to have faith. We want to please God. And so we do it, but it's before time. And it's a chain reaction. It creates so many other issues. And like you said, now we got to hide and cover over. And that becomes, now we do other stuff to cope with the fact that we never went through the mourning process. And so now it can spin off into other different areas of our lives.
Yes.
I didn't get that until now, that there is a mourning period, and there was a mourning period, and God expects us to take the time to heal.
Yes.
So that we can move on and keep, and do what he's given us to do. Wow, that's huge.
Yeah, if I was broken physically, whether I fell or sprained something, fractured something, I don't think anyone of the faith community would say, you need to trust God and just shake that off. Take that cast off your leg, throw them crutches away and receive healing. Don't you know Jesus, the cross of Calvary, paid for your healing? Hurry up and quit, just rise up and get up. Just do it. And so we have that understanding now. Now, I know the church has progress even when it comes to medical health. And there may have been a time where we weren't as progressive then. And I don't mean to deviate, but sometimes, especially in the Black church, we believe for miracles and we receive miracles because the conventional way was denied to us. So we didn't have insurance. You better believe for a miracle. They wouldn't let you in the hospital. You better pray until God break that fever or heal that. And I think that sometimes because God moved in the miraculous ways in our wildernesses, where the so to speak, where our shoes never wore out and where he fed us water from the rock, we expect to go into the promised land and expect God to still rain manna from heaven. But he stops raining manna from heaven once you go to the promised land. Wow. There are some things that he did for you when you didn't have the resources. But in the promised land, the miracle, you go from miracles to blessings, where he says, I will give you houses you didn't build, so now live in it. I'll give you vineyards you didn't plant, now take care of it. And now I'm putting the responsibility on you to do today what you couldn't do yesterday. And so we have to allow people space to be human. And that doesn't mean if my head aches and I take a Tylenol, that don't mean I don't have faith. I can pray and take Tylenol. Now, those years ago, they had to pray and wait and believe God because maybe they didn't have what we have now, and they didn't have the options we have. But we are not to deny the options that we currently have to force ourselves to live in the conditions that are no longer a necessity. So I can't try to make myself be like Big Mama's era, because I don't live in that era. And so God has given us tools, and there's gifts of healing. And why would I want to deny myself one of those gifts? So I need to be And it's not a lack of faith, that because that's a stigma too in the spiritual community, that we feel like it's not faith. But just like if a trauma happens, your mind needs time to heal. Just like if a wound happened, your body needs time to heal. And I need to give just as much grace to the person with a mental wound as I did a person with the physical wound, and know that perhaps I can't joke with them like that right now. And perhaps they're having a harder time with this, and I have to just give them space to be human. Because again, grief and having certain emotions are appropriate, and denying that sometimes throw off the healing process. If I don't allow myself the time to cry, the time to mourn, then I may throw off my time for laughter. Because while I'm trying to fake a laugh during the time to cry, then I'll be crying when it's time to laugh. So I need to embrace whatever season it is, and know that God is walking through me with those, in all of those seasons. And just because it's an inconvenient season, I can. This is going to sound contradictory, and this just hit me.
No, go ahead.
You can have joy and still be sad. That's people assume joy means happy, and so we have to put a fake smile on to prove to people that we have a spiritual joy, even though we're going through some rough things. But I can praise God and cry. I can shout and dance, and still don't know which way I'm going to turn, where the next meal coming from, don't know how I'm going to make it, because joy is based on a knowing and understanding that me and God has. I know he's going to work it out tomorrow. My praise says, I know he's going to make it all right, but my tears still say, but I'm hurting right now. So my flesh is hurting, but my spirit is still full of faith, and I can be full of faith and still have an emotional moment.
Wow. This information is revolutionary for anyone watching. I tell you, I have not heard this sermon preached. Like the offering plate, please. Cash App, please. For real. And a lot of people are struggling in secret, because if we show that, I'm battling mentally, that somewhere along the line, I have like let God down, and like my whole spiritual community down, and I let myself down, and my witness went out the window, and the devil got ground. And it's like, to really have to battle through that is like a iron gate in front of you.
Wow. Yeah, I believe in being a man of faith, and I believe, we and I think sometimes we even gone to the extreme. I'm gonna speak something into existence, and I'm not gonna state that, I'm not gonna claim that. And sometimes it's, well, how do I let people know? Sometimes we, in the name of sincere spirituality, we cage ourselves in, and we deny ourselves the ability to reach out to people, because we're afraid that if I say this or express that, then like you said, I've either let God down, or I've let my community down, or they're going to preach against me. Not necessarily like the pastor preaching, but as far as they're just gonna just hold on to God. You just need to trust God. And sometimes we as people rush to the cure without hearing the diagnosis. Sometimes people just need to talk. Sometimes they could say, yes, I know no weapon formed against me prosper. I know God's going to keep me in perfect peace. I know that, but right now I'm sad. Can you just hug me? Can you just listen to me? Just be a human to me. Let me know that I'm seen. And so many times we have invisible people in church, and we don't see them until we hear about them in the news, or until something tragic happens and says, well, they were just fine. I thought. But you had no idea that fake smile was glued on so secure that you never could see their pain. Because they trained themselves to not let it out, because they didn't want to not seem spiritually strong. And so yes, we praise. Yes, we believe God. And I'm not trying to create a culture of weakness, but I think you can be strong and still say, I'm still here, I'm still holding on, but yes, I am having a hard time. And yes, you can watch me, and I might be, I might be staggering a little bit. This hit me hard, But watch me. I'm coming through. I'm not going to act like it ain't hurting. I'm not going to, do them blessed and highly favored, everything fine, everything wonderful, just like you. Because sometimes we put that on as I've been in church all my life. We sometimes say those spiritual phrases to keep people out of our business, and because we don't trust people. So I'm blessed and happy. You can have a whole conversation with someone in church and you don't know anything about them, because we all have mastered church lingo. And so we never get to the real person. And so our real friends are outside of church, because that's the ones that we don't have to do all that formality with. And so you know the evangelist, you know the missionary, but you don't know the person. You don't know their favorite flavor of ice cream. You don't know, you know their favorite scripture, but you don't know if they love the rain or if they love summer, or if July is a rough month for them because they lost somebody. You have no idea. I just feel like sometimes we just need to connect with people as people, and not just as this facade we put on, so that we can heal the real man. We want to be whole. We don't want to just look whole. We want to be whole. And sometimes healing causes pain. You pour alcohol on a wound, it will hurt. Amen. But that's a healing hurt that's removing the infection. And so we are not machines. We respond. Sometimes things in life happen as rough. And I have just, in my profession, I commend everyone who I meet with, that if you have survived the pandemic, if you have gone through rough things before that, and you're still trying to put one step in front of the other, even if you're struggling, I think you deserve to give yourself a applause, because you have some resiliency that you didn't even know you had. And so we have to be strength-based and not just deficit-based. Okay, I'm gonna stop now.
Wow, you own it. Amen. I mean, where is this offering plate?
I'll find it in a minute.
Okay. Okay. So we're like in the middle. I feel like I don't want to digress, but I'm going to do it anyway. So, therapists, help us out. Tell me, explain to the listeners what mental illness, mental health, what is it?
Okay. So basically, when I think of mental illness, I think of any thought pattern, any element of perception of cognition that affects your quality of living. The severity of that would be based on frequency, intensity, and duration. Are you having a hard time once a week, or is it every day? Is it for hours? Like, and how bad is it? Is it where you can't go to work? You have to stay in the bed. You haven't had a shower in several days. So I'm thinking intensity, frequency, and duration. Like, how often does it happen? For some people, it is so severe it is immobilizing, and those are what we usually consider when we think of mental illnesses, because we think those more extreme, where it is very obvious to observation. But there's more people who have mental illnesses that are undiagnosed. And watch this: there are some people who have mental illnesses, they just been taught that that's just their personality. Wow. And there are some that they're so used to dysfunction that their dysfunction has become normal. And so they don't, because sometimes we can say, oh, that's just how we do. I'm from the South. That's how we do. That's just how we do. And I come from this project. That's how we do. This is what we do in New York. That's how we do. And sometimes that's not culture. Sometimes that's a dysfunction. And so we have learned patterns. Sometimes there's some things that are genetic. Let me digress. Some mental illnesses are, I would consider it almost like a plate, like a china plate that has cracks in them, but it's not broken. They're predisposed to have cracks, but it takes a precipitating event. It takes a triggering event that if you drop it, then those cracks come to surface. And sometimes there are some things that just happen, some things that start at an early age, and sometimes there's a traumatic event that changes a person's normal, and it just causes them to have to learn how to adjust. And again, when you deny that a change has occurred, or when you try to compete with your former self, that's when you complicate things more, as opposed to learning how to adapt with the current you. And so we've all had something to affect us in one way or other. We all have, based on our childhood, based on our attachment styles, based on our how we adjust to things, or how we self-regulate, how we deal with stressors. Some people have a low stress tolerance. So based on how we respond to our triggers, we all have manifest different things at one point or another. It doesn't necessarily mean you have a diagnosis, but that does mean that, like I said again, I'll say it, I might say it another time. Since the pandemic, we've all felt some type of symptoms. And I think what that has helped us as far as normalizing mental health issues is that it lets me know that if you have a mental health illness, it doesn't mean you're strange. It just means you have a different normal, or it means you have just a different way of living, a different way of coping. And just like a person who may have vision issues may need a seeing eye dog, may learn to use Braille. Someone who has anxiety may learn how to cope with their anxiety symptoms. And it may not be what the other person does, but that's okay, because I'm not running your race, you're not running mine. We all have to learn how to live our best life the best way possible. And yes, we'll pray, and yes, we'll read our Bibles, but we'll learn how to deal with that. So mental illness, I like referring to it as more like mental health issues as opposed to mental illness. I want to sound stress-based because I want to help remove that stigma. Some people don't even like the term illness, and I can respect those who don't like that term because they may not feel that it is a sickness, so to speak, as just their life. And so I think the main thing is that we all have to facilitate our own wellness, whatever that looks like. And there's many avenues of wellness, and it's not always just take some medicine or whatever. It could be improve your fitness, improve your finances, and get involved, develop your social life, increase your spirituality. There's all types of avenues of wellness that can help you function better mentally.
Wow. Okay. As you were talking, I was thinking about how we have a lot of different labels to describe how we feel. And sometimes I think the labels can themselves be a cover or a hindrance to maybe something that's deeper. So for maybe the person that, they just felt blue today, but maybe they've been feeling blue the whole month, because they were told that you can't say depressed. That's the devil. You don't want to give the devil reason to. Now, if I say it, I'm depressed.
Yeah.
Now he's going to present in a very specific way. So we tend to jump with labels. I really had a bad day, but maybe my bad day lasted for 3 months.
Yeah.
And then, I don't know. I'm stuck on, I had a blue day. I know that maybe that's, era based, maybe that's a different time.
I think it's
but blue comes up a lot. Go ahead and say that again.
I said, and culture based, because some cultures may even maybe somaticize. They might say, oh, like my stomach hurts or I have a headache. Sometimes that's a code for a mental health condition. But it's easier to say, feeling blue or I'm feeling, I think I'm having heart issues when that's anxiety, or like we do in the Black church and not to sound punitive to us, but just for clarification, we tend to make everything, we spiritualize everything. So we'll just say the enemy, we'll put the devil, we'll blame everything on the devil. And so he's attacked me. I'm going through spiritual warfare. That could mean I'm just feeling depressed or anxious. And so it may not be as much demons as a lack of coping skills.
Wow. That's freeing to say that. It's freeing, and then it can be troubling if one is not willing to really face up to that truth. Because sometimes to face up to that truth, that you have to break through so many iron gates to get free. Because it's easier within the Black church to say, or within the church. It's easier to say it's the devil.
Yeah.
It's a lot harder to say I'm
Definitely.
anxious. I'm
Yes.
having a full on panic attack.
Yes.
As a pastor,
Mhm.
how would if I was a member, how would pastor, if I say pastor, I think is
Um,
the devil, whatever. What would you say? I know I'm totally putting you on the spot with this question.
what I would say, I would feel comfortable saying that, just like I said it, that there are certain, I think, and I often preach this, maybe that it's a benefit to the church that they get all this group therapy, and sometimes it may be a little troublesome too, because I think that sometimes there are some things that are demonic. I know the enemy's attacking you, the enemy's attacking your health, the enemy's attacking whatever, but sometimes I think it's also can be a cop out, and I try to be as sensitive as possible, not to try to act like a person's just hiding behind the devil, but sometimes we are, because if it's the devil's fault, then I have to wait for him to change or wait for God to change him. But if it's me, then I need to take responsibility. So it's easier to say the devil's attacking my blood pressure than for say I eat too much fried chicken.
Amen.
You
Tell
know
the
what I'm
truth.
saying? So
Ooh.
it's easier to say that the devil's tearing up my home, as opposed to saying, I just don't know how to apologize, or I don't know how to talk to people, or I've got so many enemies and haters, and people are jealous of my ministry. That's so much easier to say that I'm not personable, that I just
Wow.
run my mouth too much, and I can dish it out, but I can't take it. It's easier to say, "Ooh, the devil's attacking me so much. He hates me this month. God must be really getting ready to do something." And and the devil do, and God is. But a part of this is we don't like taking responsibility for our part of the situation. So if I'm having anxiety, I wouldn't encourage someone to pull down strongholds, and the devil's trying to hide my scripture and all this. So much warfare. That's public speaking anxiety. It's the same butterflies you feel if you was doing a TED talk. That's not necessarily a demon. If
Amen.
you're having a hard time, you done switch sermons 20 times. Some of that could be the Lord speaking, and sometimes it could be you're just nervous, and that's okay. Just name it, own it. I don't want to claim it. Well, it's already claimed you. You don't have to claim it. You don't have to. You don't have to deny it. So that we can, once we figure out what it is we're dealing with, once we identify it, now we can learn how to fix it, how to reduce and sometimes it's not about it all going away as much as reducing its ability to paralyze you.
Wow.
So I can still stand in front of people and be nervous, but I'm gonna still keep talking, and I can channel that energy. I can channel that. So how do you best channel all of that you feel? And so that takes tools, and that so when I get finished praying, when I get finished rebuking the enemy, I still need tools so I can best live this victorious life.
Okay. Wow. Okay. I know it states it in your bio,
Mhm.
but why mental health? Why LCSW?
Why do I do mental health?
Yes.
I'll be very transparent. I was in therapy as a teenager. I didn't want to be. It feel like everybody said work at Kaiser, work at somebody's hospital, but I was trying to hide from all the church people going to the psychiatric department. I had just dealt with the loss of my father at an early age, and even at a time where he was picking up weight, and I thought the Lord might have been healing him, and I didn't know that the cancer had metastasized, and he was swelling. He wasn't, picking up weight in a good way, and dealing with all kinds of things. Our house had caught on fire. My mom had a heart attack. There was a lot of stuff. But going through that, one day the therapist asked me, "What would you want to do when you grow up? What do you want to? Where do you see yourself after all of this is over?" And I really couldn't answer the question. And I think she may have moved on. But while she was talking about something else, it dawned on me, I can do your job. And that's the epiphany I had one day. I don't even know if I even told her. I might have, maybe I didn't. But that's really stuck with me for years. Like, I can do that. And I first I thought I was going to be a nutritionist, and the crazy part is I took all the classes until I got into my major, and those were the classes that I was messing up on. I was like, okay, I gotta get a backup plan for this one. But I've always been fascinated on how things work, on how, or even how people work, what makes human relationships, what is that brain-mind connection. So that's always been fascinating to me, the study of people. So it felt natural going into this field. Now, why did I get an LCSW? Why did I become LCSW? Is because there is a certain level of legitimacy and also of respect, and certain doors you can walk through when you have the paper. I don't think the most qualified people or the best people necessarily have the paper, but there's a door that they can't get into until they get it. And so I started off doing case management work and doing everything. I won't say all that, but we did everything that you could do, doing intense community case management work. But there's only so much that our influence could give, because we didn't have that paper. And there's some people who have the paper who couldn't deal with people, didn't get how it works. So if you don't get it, you still don't get it. And if you get it, you get it. But you still need to go to school and get your degree and get your license so that you can make change from the inside the system. And so as opposed to trying to make change on a micro level, trying to do what I can and help the poor and help the disenfranchised, with a license, I can be the person that can sign for stuff instead of just petitioning somebody else sign for stuff. Wow. And so I feel that that's necessary. And as a Christian, as a kingdom influencer, the kingdom of this world has become the kingdom of our Lord and of his Christ. And if you want change in a area, you've got to become creative and learn how to take over it. And so you have to own space. Even in the Bible, this is good. This is coming to me. So this is that God was concerned about territory, not just being a part of it, but taking over the space. And so I think it's that as Christians that there is necessary that we be represented in every sphere of influence. We can't complain that darkness is creating its own agenda if we don't put our mark on the territory and push our agenda. And so I can make a positive impact for the kingdom and not necessarily push Jesus down my clients' throats, because they don't know if my advice has a biblical base in it. The Bible is full of Judeo-Christian ethics, have such powerful principles that the world has accepted and doesn't even realize it's a biblical concept. So we have to present this gospel, and God sends people. God doesn't just raise up Peter; He also raised up Paul. Peter was a man who was maybe unlearned, who had his hood vernacular, but he could stand on the corner and preach to 5,000. There was Paul, who maybe he wasn't the stomp down preacher that Peter was, that could stand on the corner without a bullhorn or microphone and just yell and preach to people. But he can articulate, he can speak in more languages than the other disciples. He can go from different culture to culture. And when I'm with the Romans, I'm with the Romans. When I'm with the Jews, I'm with the Jews. He can be multicultural. He can influence people. He can go all the way up to Rome and be able to articulate the gospel in a way that Peter couldn't, because he would have never got access. So we need saints in coach and in first class. That's what I'm trying to say.
Ooh, coach and first class. I like that. So I want to represent him everywhere, wherever, and I encourage other people, and wherever you do, be the best at it, so that you can represent the kingdom and bring the kingdom into your secular field as well. Amen. Wow. We have to represent God in coach and in first class. In coach and in first class. That's the phrase that ended episode 5. It did not end abruptly. Look out for episode 6, the continuation of mental health and the church. If you desire to connect with Therapist Edwards or myself, everything you're going to need is in the show notes. If you're watching from YouTube, everything is linked in the description box. Would you please consider rating and review Spiritual Vitamin C, the podcast? I would be forever grateful. Would you also consider subscribing as well as financially supporting? Thank you for spending your time with me on today. Please be on the lookout once again for episode 6, the conclusion of mental health in the church. And as you go throughout your week, or maybe the rest of your day, please remember, life needs a dose of Christ. See you later.